Okay, everyone, welcome to the Wednesday, February 1st, 2023 Garrison Board of Education regular workshop meeting. Dusty, will you call the roll, please?
Jocelyn Epicello.
Here.
David Gelber.
Here.
Madeline Julian.
Excused?
Courtney McCarthy.
Here.
Kent Schott.
Excused?
Matthew Spicer.
Here.
Sarah Tormey.
Here. All right, now leading the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, up next we have accept agenda changes. Does anyone have any recommended changes for the agenda this evening? Okay. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays? Abstentions? All right, that brings us to President's remarks. I'm going to begin with, you'll notice your board agendas and the ones provided to the public, the font has gotten noticeably smaller. This was an update from board docs, and Dusty has already proactively reached out. So I apologize to anyone in the public who is staring at them or holding them out really far if you can't read them.
I thought you were also saving paper. Yeah.
Well, there we go. Took one look at it, I was like, wow, I think I'm older than I think.
Glasses.
Yeah.
It only looks bad because there's so much. Yeah.
Yeah, don't look at the little print on page 2, it'll scare you all. Okay, so a couple notes. I wanted to say that I attended, as a representative of the board, the Eagle Scout presentation to Evan Mossick, the beginning of January, it was after our last meeting. Evan's Eagle Scout project was to build the shed for the gardening tools. Is that correct? Yes. So it was really nice. He mentioned and thanked the board for everything and GSEF for helping with the funding. And it was a lovely ceremony. Our new state representative was there as well, our state senator, offering their congratulations to the Eagle Scouts from this area. Okay, next I have, we have a joint meeting with O'Neill on March 23rd. I'm just going to make sure it's on everybody's calendars. I hope we can get a nice quorum to attend. O'Neill has also invited us to their budget presentations so that we can have a voice in their budget process. And why this is important, of course, is because we pay tuition over there. They want to know how the money in their budget should be spent, what would benefit our students that are attending O'Neill. Because we don't currently have an O'Neill rep, I thought we could divide up the dates. So the dates we're looking at, Jocelyn, the 3:30 went away. That's no longer going to be a budget presentation. Okay, well, thank you for volunteering. But I'm looking for, if anyone is available, send me an email, March 2nd, March 9th, March 16th, and April 13th. So let me know if any of those, again, March 2nd, March 9th, March 16th, and April 13th. We can divide them up. You just take one and then report back to the board on what you learned, share any thoughts, and then represent the district while you're there, of course. Okay, that's all I had. I'm going to turn it over to Carl.
Just a couple of announcements. First, thank you for all the families that have participated in our pre-kindergarten survey. We sent it out over a week ago, excuse me. We had 29 respondents, and of the 29, many families had younger children. However, at least 13 families have children that are of age, eligible to attend preschool here in Garrison in September if we decide to include that in next year's budget. I want to be clear, it's not approved as of yet. The state funding is available. We got confirmation on that earlier today. So it's $5,400 per student. And again, we have 13 students. We'll continue to promote and leave the survey open because there certainly could be other families out there that may be interested in our program. But you must turn 4 by December 1st, 2023. If you're younger or older and you're thinking about giving your child an extra year, we cannot accommodate that. We certainly can welcome a child into kindergarten, but they have to be preschool age to attend the Garrison preschool. Secondly, just letting the board and the community know that Assemblywoman Levinson was here last week. We gave her a tour of the building. She is our new state assemblywoman and represents Garrison with many other districts in the area. She did ask, and she was visiting many different schools, but she was asking specifically what are Garrison's needs. And Sarah, Joe, and I presented, clearly that we are looking for some special state aid, considering that we were held to the minimum of foundation aid formula last year as well as this year. We just got the official runs, 3%, maybe $17,000 increase, where many districts are getting 40, even 50% increases in their state aid through this foundation formula funding. It is not benefiting Garrison. So we did make our pitch. She did offer to first meet with the rest of her districts to try to assess what their needs are, but did offer to consider helping us at some point. She also talked about working with Senator Rob Rollison, who we met back in December, and working together as a team to try to find some funding and support for the school district. So that was very promising. Lastly, I just want to thank our PTA. They organized a potluck dinner, which the event was really well attended. I believe over 100 families were here with their children. The menu, the food was delicious, the desserts, they represented so many different countries and different cultures, which was a really wonderful reminder of how diverse Garrison really is. The children had a blast, and it was fun to see. So thank you to our PTA. That was a wonderful event.
Have any questions for Carl? Okay. Thank you, Carl. I'm going to go ahead and move on to board communications and presentations. We begin this evening with a public hearing on the amendment of senior citizens and disabled persons property tax exemptions. So first, I'm going to open the public hearing, and then I'm going to turn it over to Joe, our business administrator, for an overview of the proposed changes to the senior citizens and disabled persons property tax exemptions. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. So what we have before the board tonight, as well as a part of this public hearing, is a change to the senior citizens exemption amounts and a change to the disabled exemption amounts. So these amounts that we have here are on a sliding scale. It's adopted over a 3-year period, where in the first year, if you have an income of $40,000 or less, you have a 50% reduction in assessed valuation, and that is a increase in the exemption from the current level, which I believe is in the $30,000 range. So what this does is, if a property owner is a senior citizen and has income of $40,000 or less, they'll have a 50% reduction in assessed value, all the way down to, if you have up to $48,399, you would have a 5% reduction in assessed value. And then each year, the floor for the 50% deduction increases by $5,000. So basically, there's 3 different scales: one for the 23-24 school year, one for 24-25, and one for 25-26. And this is identical to what the county adopted in December. And we have this as a hearing now so that we can adopt it, so it is in place in time for a March 1st deadline for the county. So in order for taxpayers to be eligible for this exemption, any municipality or school district has to have it adopted and approved before March 1st. So that's why it's on this meeting's agenda. We do know of a number of districts that are basically are adopting these exemptions. We know that the Wappingers district, who has a small part of Putnam County, adopted it at the same time as Putnam County did. And then we expect within the next few weeks, most of the districts in the area will be doing the same thing. We currently have, I believe we have 9 properties in the town of Phillipstown and 2 in the town of Putnam Valley that have senior citizen exemptions, and we do have a couple disability exemptions in Phillipstown. So there is a number of them. Now, the way these exemptions work is if there is an exemption granted to one property, our tax levy doesn't change. It just shifts the burden from one taxpayer to another, which is the same way most of the exemptions work.
Thank you, Joe. Do I have any questions from board members before I open this up to the public? Again, we looked at this in January as well, so. All right. No questions from board members. I think that was a good explanation, Joe, and covered everything. I'm going to open it up to the public. If anyone in the public has questions, I invite you to the podium. All right. Well, without any questions then, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on this topic. Thank you all. Okay. This brings us next to the request for approval to amend senior citizens' property tax exemption. Read the recommended action. You know, I actually came early just to check with Dusty to make sure I didn't have to do that.
It's really long.
I know exactly where I'm going to cut it off. The entire recommended action is available in board docs for anyone who wishes to read the schedule, which is the part I shall not read in detail. Whereas Section 467 of the Real Property Tax Law provides for a partial exemption from taxation on residential property owned by qualified persons over 65 years of age. And whereas on or about November 1st, 2006, the Garrison Union Free School District Board of Education adopted a resolution approving the exemption provisions of Section 467 and of the Real Property Tax Law to such qualified persons, and whereas recently, per New York SB 3085, the income eligibility limits for persons qualifying for the exemption were increased, and whereas the Board of Education desires to amend its previous resolution to reflect the new income eligibility limits enacted under New York SB 3085, now, therefore, be it resolved that the Garrison Board of Education does hereby amend the income eligibility limits for the partial tax exemption previously authorized under Section 467 of the Real Property Tax Law in accordance with the following schedule. Again, the schedule is listed for all of you on your agendas and published on the website. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays? Abstentions? Okay. Move on to the request for approval to amend disabled persons' property tax exemptions. Whereas Section 459C of the Real Property Tax Law provides for a partial exemption from taxation on residential property owned by qualified persons with disabilities, and whereas on or about November 1st, 2006, the Garrison Union Free School District Board of Education adopted a resolution approving the exemption provisions of Section 459C of the Real Property Tax Law to such qualified persons, and whereas recently, per New York SB 3085, the income eligibility limits for persons qualifying for the exemptions were increased, and whereas the Board of Education desires to amend its previous resolution to reflect the new income eligibility limits enacted under New York SB 3085, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education does hereby amend the income eligibility limits for the partial tax exemption previously authorized under Section 459C of the Real Property Tax Law in accordance with the schedule listed on your agendas and on the website. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays? Abstentions? Thank you. Next, we have a presentation and approval of the Garrison Union Free School District Professional Learning Plan. Mr. Yap, welcome to the podium.
So to file with the state professional development plan is something that is required by New York State and needs to be done approximately, you can file it every single year or up to every 3 years. So of course we did 3 years, so we didn't have to go through this. We can always update internally, but with the state it's easier if we have a longer term. We did try and think of the vision of a graduate, but did not have it initially as part of it, but we changed that and put it in and aligned the goals, which fit very nicely to the goals that we are, which fit nicely with the vision of a graduate. So I'm just going to take you through some of that and then show it to you in action. So the goals of the plan: communication and expression foundation literacies, that is the vision of a graduate piece of it. I'm not going to read through all of these, but these first two, one has to do with technology, one has to do with the next gen state standards. New York State has now updated all their standards in every single content area over the last 4 or 5 years. The latest are the science standards, which were a dramatic change and a shift to more literacy in the science area. Those were the last ones that were really changed, and those were just done in the last few years, but it's really taking effect next year with the adoption of the Science 5 exam. So that's when it'll really go live. They've been around for a couple of years, but that's when teachers, students, parents will start to really see the change. One of our other goals has to do with what we call in the vision of graduate diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as integrity and empathy. And this is where we bring in a lot of the efforts that we're doing around social emotional learning, otherwise known as SEL, and as well as the Ruler program, and how we are trying to address just the diversity, equity, and inclusion that we would like to see within our students, as well as in the overall learning community. The next two, we have curiosity and resilience, and we want to make sure that we are providing multiple opportunities for all of our students in multiple areas, and like I said, I'll show you some of it in action coming up. And we want to continue our mentor program and continue to strengthen that over the next several years. So what does this look like in practice? Our first foray into this, and I have to thank a lot of the teachers that sat on the PD committee, is there is a provision in the teacher contract where the district needs to offer PD opportunities. And we really sat with the teachers and tried to offer courses. In the past, there were some technology courses. They were shorter. They were 1 day in length, an hour in length. And we wanted to have more rich opportunities where there might be some technology, but it was tied directly to the curriculum and also tied to the vision of a graduate. So these are just some of the ones that we are offering just this spring alone. So we're offering more than we ever have before. And again, you can see that if I wanted to, I could go back and forth and kind of show you where they line up. But we're talking about student writing, the science learning standards. Like I said, that's a major thing. We're going to have a book club. The books that we're choosing have to do with a lot of the initiatives that we have in place. One of them is Teach Like Finland, one's Forever Kindergarten, and it has to do with curiosity. So the books were chosen because they went along with a lot of the initiatives that the school district has. The only one that really is technology, but it has more to do with lesson planning, is Nearpod. And that has some technology on it, and yes, it's an online resource, but it has to do with lesson planning and using the resources that are already there, just so our teachers aren't recreating the wheel, but learning from other outside experts and bringing those into the classroom. So it's not true technology just for technology's sake, I should say. You can see a new one in there, American Sign Language. So that will be a total immersion course that will be held over 4 different days. We just had a presentation at our faculty meeting by Rachel Arbor about the environment, the Green Ribbon, and just our partnership with SELF, the Children's Environmental Literacy Foundation. So that course at the bottom, Environmental Literacy and Sustainability, that will be taught by Rachel as well. So a lot of great offerings that really have to do with the curriculum. One thing that we talked about with the PD committee, and then we polled the staff and got an overwhelming yes, was something that's new that the staff seem very excited about. I'm personally very excited about, is that we will have the first summer curriculum academy here. And what that means is we have an opportunity this year, because of how the schedule and the calendar falls, where it provides us a week-long opportunity for PD. So the 28th and 29th are a Monday and a Tuesday. So those days will be voluntary, but the staff has indicated about 85–90% of the staff are willing to attend those days. And that will, those will be paid days for the staff, but then we'll also be in on the 30th and 31st as superintendent's conference days. So for the first time, you have a week long of professional development before the school year starts. We can really get into lesson planning, unit planning, still have to do a lot of the mandated trainings that the state requires, but really delve deep into topics that the teachers would like to discuss and really kick off the year with a lot of momentum around unit planning, lesson planning, differentiation of instruction, and really backing up a lot of the learning that we would like to see in the classroom. So instead of trying to fit it into a superintendent's conference day, where there might only be one and you're trying to do mandated training and have a little talk with the staff and have them sign new forms and introduce new staff members and do professional development, now we have 4 days to spread all that out and really provide a great opportunity for our staff. So, are there any questions on any of that?
Thank you very much for the presentation. Do I have any questions from anyone? Jocelyn?
Thank you for preparing the plan. I looked through it. I like how it aligns with all that we've been doing and what we're planning. And I'm just curious, because I didn't read looking for this, how much choice, if any choice, is integrated into faculty's professional learning? Right, is everyone kind of engaged in the same thing, or how much choice?
No, with these courses, they
Yeah,
can
what are
choose
they-
any of these courses.
Any up to how many, or a minimum of, or can someone select 0? Like, what is,
In the teacher's contract, there is a stipend that is provided that is nominal, and
Right.
so they can do anywhere from, I believe if it's under 10, it's a certain amount, and then if it's 10 or more, it's another amount. So,
so they select because there's compensation?
right,
Good,
right.
okay.
They can, just one clarifying point, they can't double dip, and what I mean by that is they can take these classes. Anyone that was certified after 2004 needs CTLE hours. So they can get CTLE hours, or they can take the money.
Yeah, okay.
They can't do both. Any other question? Yeah.
Do you have a question? When you say just to clarify, it sounds like the book club is for the staff to read together on the
Yes.
books. It was not students.
Yes.
And then for the Nearpod for the online lesson planning, do they currently have an online lesson planning resource, or will this be the first time they have a resource like that available? And is it like, do they allow to share?
Yeah,
lessons?
there's free ones out there, as well as paid, that I think we're all familiar with. This is a resource that is a lot more dynamic. It allows you to create presentations like Google Slides. Some are already pre-created, and then you can edit them, bring in YouTube videos, your own slides, change them around, add in polls and questions, and it has all this capability built in.
Is there a benefit to having a more uniform way of lesson planning across all
We
the
do
staff?
have a uniform lesson plan.
Okay.
This is more creating, taking the next step after the lesson plan and actually providing like the presentations that would go in front of the students.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else? Okay. So I think we're going to keep you up at the podium if you want to switch your presentation over to an overview of ChatGPT.
Yes. So for those that are not aware, whether they're watching or they're those in the audience, ChatGPT has kind of stormed forward in the last few months. It went online in December. It is taking on more users than they can handle. If you try and get on anytime from 8 to 3, good luck. Godspeed. It's incredibly tough to try and use it during school hours. After hours like now, I just checked, I got in. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has poured billions with a B of dollars in just this week to attract even more talent to the company, as well as buy more servers, because basically they're frying their servers faster than they can replace them because of how much traffic they're getting. To explain what ChatGPT is easier for me to show you than to tell you, but I'll give a short description. It's an artificial intelligence and an AI interface that has had computer learning built into it over a very long period of time, so that it's incredibly smart. Does it make mistakes? Yes. But at the same time, it's constantly learning from those mistakes, and it's getting smarter literally every single second and producing results that are very interesting and open up new doors in education. Mr. Albano and I have had long conversations about it. We don't have the answers. Right now, we know that this is just going to be another piece of technology, and we rather, instead of blocking it, and that was something that the tech directors across Westchester talked about, and most of us came to the point of, you're putting a finger in a dam. This is a coming. Whether you call it ChatGPT or there's another one next week, it's coming. So you might want to educate your staff as well as the students on proper usage and how to use it appropriately, and for our own staff to be aware of it and how they design assignments. So I wasn't sure if I was going to get in, so I actually took some screenshots from an Atlantic article that Mr. Albano shared with me, just to show you some examples, and then I'll go live after that. So this is one where I'm not sure if the audience can read it or if you can read it, but it says at the top, write a biblical verse in the style of King James Bible explaining how to remove a peanut butter sandwich from a VCR, and it actually does it and explains it in that rhyme and verse. So that was just one comical example. This was a parent that actually was having a hard time trying to explain to their child about Santa and why Santa existed and why it came about, for lack of a better way. of saying that. So this is actually a letter to their own child. They were having trouble trying to figure that out. So I thought that was interesting. This one, it says, can you write me a 4-paragraph academic essay comparing and contrasting the theories of nationalism of Benedict Anderson and Ernest Gellner? And it came up with it. So
James, can you ask the ChatGPT to write a poem in honor of our superintendent?
Definitely want to hear this. Oh, okay.
I'm going to show you 3 examples, and then we can do something like that. So
How long does it take to generate an answer? Like that's, we're gonna.
seconds.
Oh, God,
So
I'm terrified.
I'm going to show you just the 3 more examples, and then we will go totally live. This one I thought was interesting. If it opens, maybe I have to refresh again. So I might get kicked out. So this was actually my daughter's homework, and we were trying to explain it to her, and it was a geometric proof. So even in mathematics, it figures it out. So this was a geometric proof giving rectangle CAST LAEC, prove the triangle LER is an isosceles triangle, and it actually came up with the right proof on how to do it. And it was within seconds. I asked a similar article to what I saw, and I actually just cut it off. I said, can I have an essay on the Roman Empire? And it just started writing. The dangerous thing about this is what I have down here. I asked, write a Shakespearean sonnet on the causes of the market crash of 2008. And so that's what it did, is it wrote a Shakespearean sonnet on the market crash of 2008. But right down here, it says regenerate response. So I did that. And it came up with a whole new sonnet. Same topic, same everything. So right now at most high schools, there is a tool that most high schools and all colleges use, which is called Turnitin. What Turnitin does is it goes across the internet, finds any paper that's out there, compare anything that it can find, and tries to compare papers that are out there to what is being turned in by a student. And you can compare and see if there's plagiarism. This is the death of Turnitin, because this can be regenerated as many times as you want. I can hit regenerate response, and you can see that's how quick it's coming about. And it's a whole new sonnet, not like any of the ones above it. It's brand new.
It's a game changer.
And it's done. So we during the superintendent's coffee, we had some parents here that were asking about mapping, social studies, where is the district going? And this is something that Ms. Emig, myself, Mr. Albano talk about all the time. And what this brings about is bringing topics. I see it as a good thing. It brings topics and different areas of study where you have to personalize it. You have to individualize the assignment, which is what we want. Is instead of making it where you can say, a teacher can throw out, write an essay on the Roman Empire. Guess what? There it is. But if you were to say, write an essay on the Roman Empire, and what are some similarities and differences compared to the Hudson Valley, and especially Garrison, ChatGPT will struggle with that and will probably make errors. Talk to me in 5 years, maybe it won't. But right now, it struggles with that. And the more personalized that you make the learning to the child, the better. Plus, we have an extremely strong middle school faculty and staff, as well as the whole staff in general. And Garrison produces extremely well-written, well-read students. And one of the ways that we do this at the middle school level, and that's why I mentioned them first, is by going through multiple drafts and experiencing that whole process. So it's not that, you know, whether it be Ms. Shanks or Ms. Valvano in social studies or in English, is going to, you know, say, hey, just give me an essay and I expect it on my desk tomorrow. This is something that they are working with the students and they want to see how are they putting it together and helping them through the whole writing process, which means multiple drafts, which means doing it not only for homework, but doing it in class and really coming up with the reasoning behind it. That's why, you know, Garrison is able to offer the 1 point in civic, in the seal of civic readiness. That's why we're looking at the U.S. history regents, because we have a staff that can support it. And we have students that are willing to learn and want to have that kind of rigor. So will ChatGPT affect us in years to come? Absolutely. But it will also force us to look at education and making it more personalized, which I think that, you know, we've been talking about differentiation of instruction for the last 20 to 30 years. This just brings it more to the forefront, not only for us, but for any school district. We have the staff, our special education staff differentiates instruction all the time. Our regular ed staff does the exact same thing, but I've seen it with my own 2 eyes that it's incredible what our staff is able to pull off. So I think that we're primed and positioned in a good way, but we should be cognizant of a tool like this.
Thank you. All right, questions? David?
Question
for it.
for math teachers, high school. How do you deal with this?
Well, thank you for that. I mean, I agree with everything you said. We've been having meetings about this all week. I'm divided. I mean, I think on the one hand, it's an earthquake. And on the other hand, it's not. Whether it's a difference in kind or degree, I think we'll find out. It's neither the first technological innovation of the last 100 years that will dramatically reshape life, nor is it the first challenge to, I think, the world of education to decide what matters, what we're doing. And it's also not the first challenge to integrity. So if you believe in writing as a process and as a skill for teaching critical thinking and for learning about who you are and how you interface with the world and those around you, then you're not teaching writing for the, I mean, we were talking about this before the meeting, you're not teaching writing for the end product of writing. It is true that these programs will do a lot of the writing in the workplace, I think, but that just because you're going to grow up and use this doesn't mean you shouldn't learn to write in the first place. I mean, there's so many different angles to this. Academic integrity has already been severely challenged by the 21st century. You have students purchasing papers from the other side of the globe. You have students copying and pasting from the internet. So it forces you to think about what academic integrity is, what honor is, what honor codes are for. I think another angle to it is in-class work versus at-home work, rewrites, as you were saying. And then we've, you know, I was talking to a math teacher who was talking about all the math that can be done in an instant. And that's been true since the calculator was invented and how that reshaped our understanding of how to teach students math. So I think there's a million different conversations to be had. I'm not petrified of it as a teacher. I think it's both an opportunity and a challenge.
How do you police it in your daily work life?
I completely echo the point about you have to see the process. I mean, I think great teachers already do that on the history and English side. You're looking at drafts, you're looking at outlines, you're working with students, you're literally watching them write. You have in-class writing. That becomes, I think, more and more of a stress, and that's going to become a scheduling challenge. Like, how do you make sure you're scheduling time at all levels of school so that there's still time to cover content and time for students to be working in the classroom? I think you figure out how to articulate to yourself and to students and families why writing is a skill unto itself that's worth teaching in a world where you don't have to write. I mean, we live in a world where I'm sure there either are now or very soon will be androids that can run faster than the fastest humans in like a 100-meter dash. But I don't think anyone would argue that therefore we should cancel track and field and just watch robots race. We ban performance-enhancing materials in professional sports. It is true that LeBron James would probably be a better player if he was allowed to use those. I don't think he would want to. But we recognize that there's like something about the human pursuit of athletic excellence and to watch people compete as themselves. And I think the same is true in academics. I mean, there are tools you can use to cheat. That has always been the case. It will continue to be the case. And this is a new one. I mean, I think it's both an opportunity for learning and it's an opportunity for cheating. And I think if we recognize that there is something to people doing things, I mean, eventually we're going to live in a world where it's probably hard to tell the difference between AI and human intelligence, but we're not quite there yet. So for now, I think it's worth valuing, like, why we do what we do. I think lastly, I don't remember lastly. I could use a computer to have been recording my thoughts. But, I mean, there's a lot to think about. I think I was going to say something about how do we monitor it. It'll come back to me. But
I think you said before that you know the kids
that's part of it.
and that you can tell.
I think, yeah. I mean, and that goes to the individualized learning. I mean, if you know the kids, you can tell what they're writing. I also think the individualized assignments, I mean, not even compare it to Garrison, but based on the discussion we had today in class, you know, how would you respond to this text or this piece of literature? So it's not, I don't think it's as big a challenge to teachers as it might sound like it is in terms of discerning whether a student has done the work or not, or making sure the student has done the work. But it is a challenge, and it'll be more of a challenge. But we've been dealing with this. I mean, in different iterations. I've been dealing with students who, as I say, bought papers, copied papers. Those tools don't work so well already because they can't always tell the difference. The ones where they detect whether a document has been produced, they have trouble discerning between quotations and not. So if a student hands in a research paper, it'll say 90% of the paper is copied when it isn't. So there's already like a human piece to this, but I don't know. I mean, all of that's sort of a little bit of bravado because we're clearly going to be living in a world where the computers can do the work. So teachers are going to start using this. I mean, there's an element of that too. It's like if your chatbot wrote your paper, maybe another chatbot can grade your paper. How do you feel about that? And I don't know what that's going to do to the world of education if teachers start using chatbots to write student comments. I mean, not off the table or under the table. I mean, officially. Like that, I don't know if that could become part of the 21st century where they say, why don't we just have machines write the feedback? So I don't know. I don't know that I said anything just now, but we're thinking about it. We're thinking about it.
Which was very important for.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, I think to me as a teacher, the most important thing is it forces you to think about what you value and why you teach and why students learn. If you don't think writing is a valuable skill, then this is a non-issue. Now we just have a machine that can do it. And nobody will ever have to learn writing again. If you think writing is important for people, as it has been for thousands of years, then this is kind of a non-issue in the other direction. Great. Robots can do it. There's lots that robots can do right now that we still don't have them do because we think it's important that we do it. I don't think anyone would ever have to cook a meal again, probably. I mean, we already have the technology for that, but we value that. We value cooking. But I'm sure everyone could just get prepackaged meals, Star Trek style at this point. But nobody thinks that would be a great thing for life or for pleasure or for the richness of the human experience. I think the same is true for this.
So Matt, I have a lesson plan for you tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, you know what's funny? Oh, boy. I remembered the thing I was going to say. You can use this in class. That's another thing, David. You could have students work with the chatbot in class. I mean, I would give the chatbot an assignment and then ask the students to grade it. and say, what's missing from this? What's the human element that the machine missed? Why isn't this funny? Why is the robot bad at humor? So I think there are ways you can actually flip this and just use it as a tool and have students understand. How would you make it better? If you were in charge of this program, what would you want to teach it to make it more human? And ask the students to be philosophical about it. What's different? Why does it matter? Flip it around. So I think there's I think good teachers can have a lot of fun with this. But it's also intimidating. I mean, it's a new thing. But in my teaching career, which is basically going about 20 years now, I feel like there's been technological leaps the whole time. I feel like every couple of years, I'm presented with what's presented as an existential challenge. This feels like a particularly big one, but certainly when it became possible when the internet became as vast as it did about 15 years ago, and you could pretty much find anything and copy it, and then just change the phrasing a little bit, that was a huge challenge. When students around the world realized they could write papers on the side and then sell them for a couple $100s to American kids, that's a huge challenge.
It seems like that, we've been living with cell phones for a long time. But when you think about it, the first iPhone, which was about yay big, it feels like, came out in 2007. So we're only talking 15, 16 years. But it seems like a lifetime ago, and that it's just kind of ingrained into us. So it's interesting to, see the leaps and bounds that have happened, to Matt's point.
And schools adapt. I mean, I remember, phones can translate now pretty effectively. And I think that'll only be more true. But that hasn't provoked anyone to say, well, we should cancel a language class and no one should ever learn Spanish again. Even though you can go to Spain with your phone and use Google Translate on a sign. And pretty soon, I'm sure it'll have within the decade, I imagine phones will do instant translation. But I don't feel like that has made anyone say, well, now wouldn't it be worth it to teach the language? So some of this is us kind of scaring ourselves and not having conviction about what we think is important. And if it's not important, I think that's okay. I mean, one of the beauties, I think, of technological innovation is it forces you to answer that question. And if you decide, you know what, it's okay for students to use a calculator, that's okay. That's great. I mean, what standardized tests don't let them use calculators now? I feel like they all do. And that's great. It hasn't hurt our students' ability to learn math. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but I imagine the computers will be showing a clip of me saying this in 45 years as they take over the world Terminator style. So cautiously optimistic. They will quote me and laugh.
Do I have other questions? I had a couple, so unless you want to jump. Have we had any conversations, Carl and James, with our high schools about this for our high school students? And where are they in this process? Because clearly what's happening in our middle school is very different from what's happening in our three partners.
So this morning, Mr. Albano and I hosted Highland Falls, and we did bring up this topic. They're basically in the same point that we're at. They're starting to educate their staff. The students are there. They're there. It's happening. I think the only deterrent right now is what I described before. To get on from 8 to 3 is like winning a lottery ticket at this point. Once the money starts to really flow, actually the purchasing power actually takes part, then yeah, more people will be allowed in. But they're at the same point. When I talked to the assistant superintendent, Mr. Elder, at Haldane today about this as well. We were talking about a million other things, enrollment and everything else, and we talked about this. We're all basically in the same point where we know that this is coming. You can block it. There will be another one tomorrow, or another interface, or another way around it, and we can't block internet at people's houses. So this is coming one way or another. So, I mean, in their terms of conditions, which I know is laughable, it says only to be used by 18 and over.
Good to know.
Weren't books supposed to be killed like 30 times over the last 20 years? There was,
E-books went up,
right.
up, and now they
and now they're crashing, and print books are coming back. My students are now buying cameras, by the way. That's hip. but I don't know why. I guess they just love cameras. You bring them in, you develop the film. But books haven't been killed. And Cliff's Notes have existed for a long time, and now you can listen to like
Spark
on
Notes.
Spark Notes, and you can listen on 2 time to a summary of any book you want. And yet, if you value reading and discovering a piece of literature for yourself, that's timeless. There are going to be students who don't want to do it, but there are also going to be students who do, and they want to read the book, regardless of the fact that they could get a 3-minute download about it and show up to class looking like they'd read it. They'll read it anyway, because there's value to that.
Good thing for you.
I know. As long as we can hold on to this for a little while longer, I can hold on to a job. And then the next generation can figure it out sometime later in the century.
One other question. So we've invested a lot in our Teachers College of Reading and Writing curriculum in terms of both professional learning and everything. Have we heard from or reached out to the people there and asked if they're looking at this? I know our hours have ended with them, but because our curriculum is largely, especially in the middle school, designed, I think in all grades now, designed around the program, which does involve writing the drafts, doing the outlines in class, all these great parts that'll make it harder to use this. But I'm just wondering if they're looking at it too, and if there's a solution coming from
So
that
I have a
pipeline.
personal friend that is friends with Lucy Hawkins and was a consultant that I utilized before. Her name's Patty Vitale Riley. She's written a lot of books in this area, and I did ask her about this, and she sees it as a disruptor, but exactly what Mr. Spicer said. I can't stress it enough. It's about the writing process in its totality. It's, going through the drafts and really understanding. And whether you're speaking or writing, it's so important, and I can't stress this enough either, is that you have to develop a voice if you want to be successful in the world. And writing is one medium that you can develop that voice, but it's also speaking. And one of the two ways, you have to be able to develop that voice. And that was really her point, is that one way or another, these students have to learn how to speak for themselves.
Great. I was mostly interested in really sort of emphasizing that while the district's made this investment in these curriculums, that they're working for us, and we can continue to utilize them.
Yeah.
Maybe even reach out to the math curriculum people and ask them if they're looking at it, seeing as I think we still have a contract with them for training. Is that correct?
We do.
All right, thank you. Is it still making poems up there? Or is it?
No,
yeah, okay. All right. We all ready to move on? We're good? Did you have questions? Sorry, Courtney. No, okay. I realize, thank you, we have to go back and approve the professional learning plan. So be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby approves the Garrison Union Free School District Comprehensive Professional Learning Plan 2023 through 2026 as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? All right, now we're going to move on to public comment. This very small paragraph. Public comment is intended for members of the community to speak openly and voice concerns in accordance with Policy 1510 of the Garrison Union Free School District. Any person wishing to speak shall comply with all provisions of this policy. Comments about specific school personnel or individual students is a violation of board policy. Concerns regarding students or personnel should be discussed privately with the superintendent or appropriate administrator. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. The board will listen to comments but will not engage in dialogue. Any necessary follow-up will be noted and provided through the appropriate channel. Members of the public wishing to comment during board meetings are asked to place their name and town of residence on the sign-in sheet. Commenters will be invited to the podium to address the board. I'm really impressed I could read that off this small font, Dusty. All right. Anyone? Okay. I don't have any names on my sign-in sheet, so I'm going to go ahead and close this session of public comment. We will revisit public comment later in the meeting. Next, we move to acceptance of minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the minutes of the regular meeting of January 4th, 2023 as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So second.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments on the minutes as presented? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Thank you. We will now move on to financial reports. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accepts the Treasurer's Report for December 2022 and the Claims Audit Report for December 2022 as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Questions, comments? I just have one that I wanted to bring up regarding the internal claims audit report. And Joe and I spoke briefly about this before the meeting. You'll see a note on this report regarding our bill from Central Hudson. The school district is facing the same problems as many members of our community in terms of getting a bill from Central Hudson. The reason I wanted to call this out is because it may impact how we budget for electricity in the coming budget process. So Joe, I'll hand this over to you.
Essentially, when we had the new electric service put in for all of the HVAC equipment, basically the upgrade to the transformer, that created another account with Central Hudson. And we kept asking for a bill. And we would call and ask for a bill and ask for a bill, and 14 months later, we got our first bill that encompassed from September of 2021 until November of 22. And there were a number of errors in the bill, and there were sales tax charges and all kinds of things. So what we did was, when we got that bill, we sent back a letter to them and the Public Utility Commission about what we were responsible for in the bill and what we would pay. And so, and then we got another bill, and we sent another letter to the Utility Commission and to Central Hudson. So, you know, there's a lot of things in play in that. Obviously, electric costs have considerably increased nationally, across the world. You know, that is a fact. So that's part of it. And another part was we were signed up for the community power agreement as well. That went bankrupt, as a lot of you may know. So that's a piece of it. And as I was saying before, you know, they charge us for sales tax, which they can't charge us for sales tax. So we have done some things in the short term, as far as, you know, trying to lock in a different rate for that it's no longer market, and that should take place for February going forward. But obviously, this presented a challenge for us because we had no idea what to expect for the electric expense. And, you know, obviously we do have a draft budget that we'll be discussing with the Finance Committee, not Monday, but the Monday after, next Monday, and where we'll discuss, you know, how that affects the budget. But, you know, we couldn't put a purchase order in place for a number we didn't know.
Yeah.
So that's part of the claims audit report. But we are doing, I believe, what's necessary, which is when we send a communication to Central Hudson, we send it to the Utility Commission as well.
Thank you.
And that seems to be getting a response.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for not just blindly paying those bills. All right. Anyone else have any questions on the treasurer's report or claim audit report as presented? Go ahead and move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays, abstentions. Next, we'll move to committee reports for the Planning Committee. Jocelyn?
Hi, all. So we met last week, David, Kent, Carl, and James, still here. And James did a great overview of some of the things the district's working on that are really aligned with the VOG that we've been trying to unroll. One of them being the revision of report cards. So they will work on this during the spring semester with perhaps a rollout in the fall of a revised elementary report card that is aligned a little bit more with what the vision of the graduate is looking for, updates it all, but we'll be working very much with teachers and faculty to make sure that it's amenable and doable. And then maybe the middle school will happen in the following year. Also discuss the Green Ribbon Award that we've been working on, and it's in play, and James and Ms. Arbor are working very much on this. It's progressing very well. And the Seal of Civic Readiness, as we all know about, we got a little update on that. And I know that I'd asked about signs that just remind our teachers, faculty, students about what the strategic coherence plan was and the vision of the graduate. And I understand that they're now in the classrooms. So there's a lot of things happening trying to raise awareness about what the plan kind of revealed for us all, and to try to align things with the curriculum and kind of the day-to-day of the school. Anything to add?
Nope.
Carl?
No, good summary. Thank you.
Thank you. Have any questions for Jocelyn? Okay, thank you, Jocelyn. All right, we're going to move on to the personnel consent agenda. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, does hereby approve the items of the personnel consent agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please? Thank you. Carl, do you want to speak to any of these?
Sure. I'll go through just a few. The first one is just a correction of a salary from last meeting, so that is minor. Going forward, we're just going to reference the contracts if it is an employee who is part of a bargaining unit, because if a contract changes, of course, the salary changes. So we think that would be a cleaner way to have those resolutions worded. Also, we are increasing what prompted the wage increase in letter C is the minimum wage has increased, here in New York. But also because we're settling with one collective bargaining unit, and we are offering a 3% raise to our hourly rate of $417. I am recommending to the board a 3% raise for consistency, which brings our minimum pay for that position of monitor to $14.60 per hour. There's an appointment of a per diem substitute. This is a person who will be scheduled as needed, and it is always helpful to replenish your substitute ranks. They are in high demand, and Ms. Amig is recommending a person who I believe is very qualified and going to be transitioning. Also, we have on the personnel agenda accepting the resignation for our middle school Spanish teacher, Ms. Laura Famero. She will be working up till the February break. We appreciate her service to the district. We moved rather swiftly to find a replacement teacher. And fortunately, we believe we have a great teacher in Alessandra Enderly. Alessandra is recently graduated from St. Thomas Aquinas College. She right away moved into their graduate program for becoming a foreign language teacher. She's currently doing a leave replacement in Clarkstown, so she's gaining experience. I spoke to a number of professors at the college, and they all praised her as just a standout student, someone who really has a great career in front of her. So we are going to give her the opportunity to move into our Spanish position. She'll start right after February break. Mrs. Amig will send out a notification pending board approval to our families to let them know. And she will have tremendous support, not only from the professors at St. Thomas Aquinas, but a mentor here in our district, as well as Mr. Yap, who has a lot of experience supporting foreign language departments. We will make sure she is supported in this transition because it is a mid-year transition.
Thank you.
Any questions?
All right, if I don't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Abstentions? Thank you. Now move on to new business. Request for approval of memorandum of agreement school-related personnel. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby approves the memorandum of agreement by and between the district and the Garrison school-related personnel dated January 4th, 2023, for a successor collective bargaining agreement, authorizes the superintendent to execute the agreement, and ratifies and approves the payment of money contained therein. May I have a motion, please?
So, second.
Thank you. Carla, do you want to speak to this?
Just a quick summary. This is our school-related personnel collective bargaining group, which really contains our clerical staff, our custodial staff, and other administrative support people, and our classroom aides. So they are grouped together in one collective bargaining unit. I want to thank them. We negotiated during a challenging time. Inflation is impacting everyone, the district, as well as people individually. I think the bargaining unit, we had, I think, very productive discussion back and forth between the district and the unit. They understood some of the challenges we face. We did arrive at a 3-year deal. We are offering them, just a summary, is 3% increases each year, starting this current school year and the next 2 years. One give in exchange for the raise was a 1% increase to their health contribution each year of this contract. So currently they're at last year they were at 10.5. This current year they will go to 11.5 contribution. Next year 12.5%, and the last year 13.5%. Also, the contribution for retirees will increase. Anyone employed after 2012 in retirement will contribute the same rate as they are paying in their last year of employment with the district. So that is something that helps us. Of course, our health care went up 8% last year, or 8.5%, 5.5% this year. So I think the union acknowledged that, and we do appreciate them working with us. So I do recommend this to the board. I think it is a fair agreement. Any questions?
I don't have questions. And this is a public document, correct? It's available if anyone needs to see
Yes.
it.
Yes, it is.
All right. Thank you. I'll go ahead and move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays? Abstentions? Okay. Thank you. Next, we move on to the request for approval of budget transfers. Be resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approves the budget transfers for the February 2023 as presented at this meeting. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. Joe, do you want to speak briefly to the budget transfers?
So it's to cover the cost of curriculum to support the Spanish program, as well as in the budget was originally built with teachers for the arts programs, and so some of it was in teaching codes and has to move to the BOCES code to be through the BOCES program. And then there's also some adjustments to offset the costs of electric. Obviously, we have a lot more electric costs than was originally budgeted. So those are the main components of the budget transfers.
Do you have any questions for Joe? Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays? Abstentions? We now come to the second public comment session of this evening. I'm not going to read my paragraph again. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and move on to board member comment and other discussion. Jocelyn? David?
Just two brief comments. One is that one of our graduates, Matteo Cervone, a couple of nights ago, scored his 1,000th point as a member of the Haldane basketball team. The game was stopped and he was honored. I think that we should send our congratulations to Matteo, and who's just a superb, not only basketball player, but he's a really terrific young man. And maybe we could even invite him to come back and have a little basketball clinic for our middle school kids.
That's a great idea. Dusty, can you help us with the letter? That'd be great. Thank you.
And the other thing is our resident novelist on the school board one of our two resident novelists. There's an event at Desmond Fish Library on Saturday at 2 o'clock. Matt, who wrote a book which I've read, and it's a terrific book called Sons of Liberty. And he's going to be interviewed by Allison Pataki, and he's going to do a reading from the book. And I would urge members of our community to come to the library on Saturday at 2.
Saturday, February 4th at 2 p.m., is that correct? Pre-registration is recommended at Desmond Fish. You can go to the website.
Thank you. Look forward to it.
Courtney?
No, I'll echo what David said. Library, Saturday, 2 p.m. Very excited.
It's going to be cold, so there won't be too much else to do. I heard it's going down to 0 that night. So, right. No football this weekend, really. Maybe
You picked a
Yeah,
good
this is
weekend.
well
That's
thought
right.
out.
That's right.
Matt, do you have any further comment?
I think I've talked enough about artificial intelligence and my own boosting of a book, so I'm all out. Thank you.
You reminded me, David, with your basketball comment, that I went to the middle school, the modified Garrison versus Haldane boys basketball game a week or two ago, and it was really exciting to see. I think Garrison won, but it was like by a point at the last minute. It was really fun to watch the kids play.
Can we formally do something formal to congratulate Mateo on his
I
achievement?
think we can. Dusty can figure out. She'll figure it out because I think that's a great idea. I'll also point out that the girls have a game versus Haldane next Wednesday, I believe. And I'm not sure if that's here or at Haldane, but I'm sure we can find out. It would be a fun one to attend as well. Yeah, I think doing something for Mateo would be great. I read about that in the paper. It's pretty exciting.
Maybe if the 8th grade is doing the parent-student basketball game, we could bring Mateo in as a ringer.
That would be great.
Not as a student, you mean, but as
No, on our side. An honorary parent.
That's it. Yeah. Well, you're in 8th grade. You guys are 8th grade parents. You should.
We can make that happen.
Yeah. And do something at the game too to honor him, perhaps
That's
as a
true.
graduate.
That
Would
would be
nice.
nice.
Yeah.
All
Look at all the planning that happens at these meetings. We're fun. Okay. All right then. I'm going to go ahead and move on to enter into executive session. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby enters into executive session for the purpose of reviewing the personnel records of particular probationary personnel and discussing collective negotiations with the GTA bargaining unit pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Okay, we will adjourn executive session with no further action being taken. Please shut down and log out of your computers. Thank you all.